Jake Morrison stood by the big window of the ship called Defiant and watched the huge alien station grow bigger as they got closer. The station was massive and looked like a giant crystal tower that went up for miles and miles. It was the home of the Galactic Council, where all the smart alien races came together to make decisions about the galaxy. Today was the day humans would ask to join them. Jake had been working toward this moment for 3 whole years. He was a commander in Earth's Space Navy and had been chosen to lead the mission because he was good at talking to aliens and staying calm under pressure. The other humans on the ship were just as nervous as he was, but they tried not to show it. Lisa Carter walked over to stand next to Jake. She was an admiral and his boss for this mission. Lisa had gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She looked worried as she stared out at the alien station. "The early reports are not good, Jake," Lisa said quietly so the other crew members would not hear. "The bug-like aliens called Zephyrians are already saying they don't want us to join their club." Jake felt his stomach drop, but he kept his face calm. He had expected this might happen, but hearing it still hurt. "What reasons are they giving?" he asked. "The same old stuff," Lisa replied with a sigh. "They think we are too violent and can't be trusted. They looked at our history books and saw all the wars we fought against each other. They think we will bring trouble to their peaceful galaxy." The ship docked at the station and the human team got ready to meet with the council. There were 12 humans total, including Jake and Lisa. The most important person was Helen Price, who was Earth's best diplomat. She had spent her whole life learning how to talk to different kinds of people and make deals. If anyone could convince the aliens to let humans join, then it would be her. The council chamber was the biggest room Jake had ever seen. It was shaped like a bowl with seats going up and up in circles. There were aliens of every shape and size sitting in those seats. Some looked like giant bugs with too many arms. Others were tall and thin like walking sticks. Some had tentacles instead of arms, and others had scales or fur or skin that changed colors. All of their eyes were watching the humans as Helen Price walked to the center of the room to give her speech. She wore her best blue suit and carried a small computer that held all the information about Earth and humanity that she wanted to share. Helen began speaking in a clear, strong voice that carried to every corner of the huge room. She told the aliens about all the good things humans had done. She talked about the art and music and books that humans had created. She explained how humans had learned to work together and stop fighting wars against each other. She showed them pictures of human cities and farms and schools. "We know our history has dark parts," Helen said as she looked around at all the alien faces. "Humans have made mistakes and hurt each other in the past. But we have grown and learned from those mistakes. We want to be part of the galactic community and help make the universe a better place for everyone." Jake watched the aliens as Helen spoke and tried to read their expressions. It was hard because alien faces were so different from human faces. Some of the aliens seemed interested in what Helen was saying, but others looked bored or annoyed. A few were making notes on their computers, but most just sat and stared. When Helen finished her speech, the room was quiet for a long time. Then a huge bug-like alien stood up from the center seat. This was Speaker Velthar, who was the leader of the council. He was twice as tall as a human and had 4 arms and big black eyes that reflected light like mirrors. Speaker Velthar made clicking sounds with his mouthparts as he spoke. The computer system translated his words into English so the humans could understand. "The council has reviewed the application from the species called humans," he said in a voice that sounded cold and final. "We have studied your history and your current society very carefully." Jake felt his heart beating faster as he waited to hear what the alien would say next. "The application is rejected," Speaker Velthar announced. "Your species has shown throughout its short history that it prefers violence over peace. You fight wars over small differences and destroy your own planet for resources. You are not ready to join civilized galactic society." The words hit Jake like a punch in the stomach. All around the chamber, the other aliens were making noises that sounded like agreement. Some were clicking their tongues or claws. Others were making whistling sounds. A few were flashing lights on their skin or changing colors. Helen Price kept her face calm, but Jake could see her hands shaking a little as she gathered up her papers and computer. She had worked so hard to prepare for this moment, and it had all been for nothing. "We understand your concerns," Helen said carefully, "but humanity has changed. We have learned to be better. We just want a chance to prove that we can be good members of your community." Speaker Velthar made more clicking sounds that the computer translated as laughter. Perhaps in a few hundred years when your species has grown up more, he said. Right now, you are too primitive and dangerous to be trusted with the responsibilities of council membership. As the human team prepared to leave the chamber, Jake looked around at all the alien faces one more time. What he saw there made him feel even worse than the rejection itself. The aliens were not just saying no to humanity. They were looking down on humans like they were stupid children who did not matter at all. Some of the aliens were already turning away and talking to each other about other business. To them, the humans were just an annoying interruption in their important day. They had dismissed humanity completely and did not even think humans were worth worrying about. Jake felt anger starting to burn in his chest as he followed the other humans out of the chamber. The aliens thought they were so much better and smarter than humans. They thought humans were just violent animals who would never amount to anything important. As they walked back to their ship, Jake made a promise to himself. Someday the aliens would realize they had made a big mistake. Someday they would understand what humans were really capable of when they put their minds to something. And when that day came, Jake wanted to be there to see the looks on their alien faces. 3 months had passed since the aliens told humanity to go away, and Ryan Blake was getting ready for the most important mission of his life. He was the captain of a big warship called the Harbinger, and he had orders that came straight from the President of Earth herself. The orders were simple but scary at the same time. He had to go back to the alien council station and deliver one final message from humanity. Ryan stood in his captain's room looking at the official message on his computer screen. He had read it 20 times already, but he kept reading it again because he could not believe what Earth's leaders were asking him to say. The message was not nice or polite like the speeches that diplomats usually gave. It was direct and serious, and it would probably make the aliens very angry. President Maria Gonzalez had written the message herself after weeks of heated arguments with her advisors. The diplomatic people wanted to send something soft and friendly that would keep the door open for future talks. The military people wanted to send something that would scare the aliens and show them that humans were not weak. But the president had decided to do something different. She wanted to send a warning. Ryan's ship flew through space toward the alien station, and he thought about what had happened since the rejection. Back on Earth, people were angry like he had never seen before. Humans from every country and every background were working together for the first time in history. They all had the same goal now. They wanted to show the aliens that they had made a huge mistake. The governments of Earth had started the biggest military buildup that anyone could remember. Factories were working day and night to build new ships and weapons. Scientists were working on new technologies that would make human ships faster and stronger than alien ships. Regular people were volunteering to join the space forces or work in the weapons factories. Everyone wanted to help, but the most important thing that was happening was that humans were finally united. For the first time in their entire history, they were not fighting each other over stupid things like borders or resources or religions. They had a common enemy now, and that enemy was the entire galaxy that thought humans were not good enough to join their club. When Ryan's ship arrived at the council station, he sent a message, asking for permission to address the council. He expected them to say no, but they agreed to let him speak. Maybe they were curious about what humans wanted to say. Maybe they thought it would be funny to listen to more human begging. The council chamber looked exactly the same as it had 3 months earlier. The same aliens sat in their same seats looking down at the humans like they were annoying insects. Speaker Velthar was still in his big center seat clicking, his mouth parts together as he waited to hear what the human had to say. Ryan walked to the center of the room wearing his military uniform, with all his medals and ribbons. He was not a diplomat like Helen Price had been. He was a soldier, and he looked like one. His uniform was dark blue with silver buttons, and his hat had the symbol of Earth's Space Navy on it. He wanted the aliens to know that this time they were dealing with the military, not the diplomatic corps. "I have come to deliver a final message from the planet Earth," Ryan said in a loud, clear voice that carried to every corner of the huge chamber. "Since you have decided that humanity is not fit to join civilized galactic society, we will respect your decision and leave you alone." Some of the aliens started making happy noises when they heard this. They thought the humans were giving up and going home to hide. Speaker Velthar clicked his mouth parts in what passed for laughter among his kind of alien. "That is a wise choice," the alien leader said. "Perhaps being alone for a while will teach your species some humility and help you grow up." Ryan waited for the alien laughter to die down before he continued speaking. However, we feel that we should warn you about something important that you do not understand about human beings, he said. When we are threatened or attacked or told that we do not belong somewhere, we do not just give up and go away quietly. The laughter in the chamber started to fade as the aliens realized the human was not finished talking. When someone tries to keep us down or tells us we are not good enough, we do not surrender, Ryan continued. Instead, we work harder and get stronger and prove them wrong in ways they never imagined possible. Every time in our history when someone said humans could not do something, we found a way to do it anyway. Now the chamber was completely quiet. The aliens were starting to understand that this was not the same kind of speech they had heard from humans before. This was not begging or pleading. This was something else entirely. You studied our history and you saw the wars and the fighting, Ryan said as he looked around at all the alien faces. But you missed the most important lesson. Every single time someone tried to destroy us or control us or tell us we were inferior, we came back stronger than before. Every single time, a lizard-like alien from the back of the chamber stood up and hissed angrily. "Are you threatening the Galactic Council, human?" it asked in a voice that sounded like steam escaping from a pipe. Ryan smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "I am not threatening anyone," he said calmly. "I am giving you a warning based on historical facts about my species. We are going home now, and we are going to prepare. We are going to build and grow and become something that you cannot even imagine right now." The aliens were getting more and more uncomfortable as they listened to Ryan speak. They had expected the humans to crawl away in shame, but instead, this human soldier was standing in their chamber talking like he was not afraid of any of them. "When we come back, and we will come back, you are going to discover what humanity is truly capable of when you give us a good reason to show you," Ryan said. "You could have had us as friends and partners who would have helped you and worked with you to make the galaxy better. Instead, you chose to make us into something much more dangerous." Ryan put his hat back on his head and straightened his uniform jacket. "You have been warned," he said simply. Then he turned around and walked out of the chamber without looking back. Behind him, the aliens sat in stunned silence, trying to figure out what had just happened. Most of them dismissed the warning as the angry words of a defeated species that was trying to save face. They had no idea what they had just unleashed or what was coming for them in the years ahead. 5 years had passed since Ryan Blake delivered his warning to the aliens, and the galaxy had become very quiet. No more human ships were seen traveling between the stars. No more messages came from Earth asking for trade agreements or scientific exchanges. The alien species thought this meant the humans had given up and were hiding on their home planet, feeling sorry for themselves. They were completely wrong about what was really happening. On Earth, General Paul Martin was running the biggest military project in human history. Every country on the planet was working together in ways that had never happened before. The rejection by the Alien Council had done something that no human leader had ever been able to do. It had united all of humanity under one common goal. Paul stood in the main command center deep underground in Colorado, looking at screens that showed progress reports from around the world. In China, they were building new factories that could produce spaceship parts faster than anything that had ever existed. In Russia, they were mining rare metals that were needed for advanced weapons systems. In Europe, they were designing computer systems that could control entire fleets of warships. In America, they were testing new engines that could make ships travel faster than light. But the most important work was being done by Dr. Susan Wright in a secret laboratory in Nevada. She was the smartest scientist on Earth when it came to understanding how alien technology worked. For 3 years, she had been studying the engines and computers that the aliens used to travel between stars. Susan walked into the command center carrying a tablet computer that showed her latest test results. She was a small woman with messy brown hair, who always wore a white lab coat covered in coffee stains. But when she smiled, Paul knew she had good news. "We did it," Susan said simply. "We figured out how their faster-than-light engines work, and we made them better." Paul felt his heart start beating faster. This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. "How much better?" he asked. 30% faster, and they use less fuel," Susan replied. "Our new engines can travel farther and faster than anything the aliens have. We can go places they cannot reach and get there before they even know we left." Across the country in a military base in Texas, Colonel Tony Davis was working on a different kind of problem. He was in charge of figuring out how humans should fight if war came with the aliens. Tony was a smart soldier who understood that humans could not win by fighting the same way they had always fought. Tony stood in front of a big map that showed all the alien territories in the galaxy. Red dots marked their important planets and blue lines showed their trade routes. He had been studying alien military tactics for years and he thought he understood their biggest weakness. They fight like they think, Tony explained to his team of officers. They are logical and predictable. They make plans and follow them step by step. They expect their enemies to do the same thing. One of his officers raised her hand. What does that mean for us, sir? Tony smiled. It means we are going to do things they never expect. We are not going to fight fair, and we are not going to follow their rules. We are going to be unpredictable and chaotic, and that will drive them crazy. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Betty Johnson was watching the construction of the largest fleet of warships that humans had ever built. Betty was tough and smart, and had been chosen to command the new fleet because she was good at making quick decisions in dangerous situations. The new ships were amazing to look at. They were bigger and more powerful than the old human ships, but they also looked different. The alien technology that Susan had stolen and improved was built into every part of them. They had sleek, curved hulls that seemed to bend light around them. Their weapons were hidden inside the hull until they were needed. Their engines were silent and left no trail that enemy ships could follow. Betty's flagship was called the Resolution, and it was the most advanced warship that humans had ever created. It was 3 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy an entire alien fleet. But more importantly, it carried something that no alien ship had ever seen before. It carried human creativity and human determination and human anger at being told they were not good enough. On the outer edges of the solar system, Captain Steve Miller was in charge of the biggest construction project in human history. Steve was building secret bases on asteroids and moons where humans could hide their ships and weapons. These bases were invisible to alien sensors and could support millions of people. Steve stood on the observation deck of his command ship, looking out at the construction work happening all around him. Thousands of human workers in spacesuits were using new tools and machines to hollow out asteroids and turn them into fortress cities. Each base had its own factories and farms and power plants. If Earth was ever attacked, these hidden bases would keep humanity alive. But Steve knew they were building more than just hiding places. They were building the foundation for a new kind of human civilization. A civilization that did not need permission from aliens to exist and grow. A civilization that would be stronger and more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The most amazing thing was how fast everything was happening. Before the rejection, humans had spent most of their time and energy fighting each other over stupid things. Now all that energy was focused on one goal, and the results were incredible. Human technology was advancing faster than ever before. Human population was growing as people moved to the new colonies. Human industry was producing ships and weapons at a rate that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. President Maria Gonzalez received reports every day about the progress being made. In her office in Washington, she read about new discoveries and new achievements that made her proud to be human. Her decision to send that warning to the aliens had been risky, but it was, working better than she had ever hoped. The aliens thought they had solved their human problem by rejecting Earth's application to join their council. What they had actually done was create their worst nightmare. They had given humanity a reason to become something more dangerous and more capable than they could possibly imagine. In 5 years, humans had gone from being a single-planet species, begging for acceptance, to being masters of 30 star systems with technology that surpassed anything in the galaxy, and they were just getting started. The Galactic Council was having another boring meeting about trade disputes when the first alarm started beeping. Speaker Velthar was listening to a complaint from some fish-like aliens about shipping costs when his assistant rushed into the chamber with a worried look on his face. "Speaker, there is strange energy. Readings coming from the outer rim," the assistant said quietly so the other council members would not hear. "Our scout ships are detecting massive industrial activity in areas that should be empty space." Velthar felt annoyed at being interrupted during official business. "What kind of industrial activity?" he asked. While still trying to pay attention to the fish, aliens who were still complaining about their shipping problems. "The energy signatures are enormous, sir," the assistant replied. "Whatever is out there is producing more power than some of our core worlds. And the technology readings do not match anything in our databases." For the first time in years, Velthar felt a small chill of worry. The outer rim was supposed to be empty except for a few primitive species that barely had space travel. Nothing out there should be capable of the kind of activity his scouts were reporting. 3 days later, the mystery was solved in a way that no one in the Council had expected. A fleet of ships appeared at the edge of Council space, and immediately every alien sensor system in the area started screaming warnings. These were not primitive vessels from unknown species. These were advanced warships that radiated power signatures unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ships moved in perfect formation as they approached the Council station. There were 50 of them in total, and each one was massive and sleek and beautiful in a dangerous way. Their hulls seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it, and they moved through space with a grace that defied all known principles of physics. Admiral Betty Johnson stood on the bridge of her flagship, Resolution, watching the alien station grow larger on her main screen. She felt calm and confident as she prepared to address the same aliens who had rejected humanity 5 years earlier. But this time everything was different. This time humanity was not asking for permission to exist. "Open communications with the Council station," Betty ordered her communications officer. The young man pressed several buttons on his control panel and nodded when the connection was established. Betty's voice carried clearly across space to the alien station where thousands of Council members were frantically trying to understand what they were seeing. "Greetings, Galactic Council," she said in a tone that was polite but carried the unmistakable confidence of absolute superiority. "This is Admiral Johnson of the Human Federation Fleet. We have returned to discuss our membership application." Inside the Council chamber, panic was spreading as delegates realized what was happening. The humans were back, but they were not the same humans who had left 5 years earlier. These humans had ships that made the Council's most advanced vessels look like ancient relics. Captain Alex Torres commanded one of the escort ships in Betty's fleet. His vessel was called the Vindication, and it was designed to gather intelligence about enemy forces. Alex watched his screens as alien ships tried to scan the human fleet and failed to get accurate readings. "Admiral, they are trying to analyze our ships, but their sensors cannot penetrate our stealth systems." Alex reported over the communication link. "Their computers are showing impossible data, and their military commanders are running scared." Betty smiled as she listened to the report. The human fleet was designed to be intimidating, and it was working perfectly. Every system on their ships was more advanced than anything the aliens possessed. Their weapons were more powerful. Their defenses were stronger and their engines were faster. Most importantly, their crews were motivated by 5 years of anger and determination. Speaker Velthar finally managed to restore some order to the chaos in the Council chamber. His voice shook slightly as he addressed the human fleet. "What is the meaning of this display of force?" he demanded. "The Council rejected your application for membership. You have no authority to bring warships into Council space." Betty's response was calm and measured. "We have authority to exist in this galaxy whether you approve or not," she said. "We have authority to build civilizations in unclaimed space. We have authority to develop technology that surpasses yours. We do not need your permission for any of these things." Without any warning, the human ships began to demonstrate capabilities that violated every known law of physics. They moved through maneuvers that should have been impossible for vessels of their size. They accelerated and stopped and changed direction in ways that made watching aliens question their own understanding of reality. Commander Lisa Hayes was flying a small fighter craft that danced around the massive Council station like it was performing in an air show. Her ship phased through solid matter, moved faster than light in short bursts, and seemed to respond to her thoughts rather than her control inputs. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as she performed aerobatics that turned their understanding of space combat upside down. "This is just a small demonstration," Betty announced as her ships continued their impossible maneuvers. "We have spent the last 5 years doing what humans do best. We adapted and we improved and we exceeded every limitation that you thought applied to us." The message was becoming clear to even the slowest alien minds. Humanity had not spent the last 5 years hiding and licking their wounds. They had spent the time becoming something that the galaxy was not prepared to handle. They had become the dominant technological power in known space, and they were no longer interested in begging for acceptance. But the most frightening thing for the watching aliens was not the advanced technology or the powerful weapons. It was the confidence and unity that the humans displayed. These were not desperate refugees asking for help. These were conquerors who had decided to be generous enough to offer partnership instead of demanding surrender. The demonstration continued for several hours as human ships showed off capabilities that redefined what was possible in space. They could become invisible to sensors, appear in multiple places at once, and coordinate their actions with precision that suggested they were all controlled by a single mind. When the show finally ended, the council chamber was completely silent. Every alien delegate understood that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. The species they had dismissed as primitive and violent had become something that could destroy their entire civilization without breaking a sweat. The age of alien dominance was over and the age of human ascendancy had begun. The next morning, the Galactic Council held an emergency session that was very different from any meeting they had ever had before. This time, the alien delegates were not looking down at humans like they were inferior creatures. This time, they were looking at humans with the kind of respect that only comes from fear and recognition of superior power. Ambassador Helen Price walked into the council chamber, wearing the same blue diplomatic suit she had worn 5 years earlier, when the aliens rejected humanity's first application. But everything else about the situation had changed completely. Helen was no longer representing a weak species begging for acceptance. She was representing the most powerful civilization in the galaxy, and everyone in the room knew it. Helen stood in the center of the chamber and looked around at all the alien faces that were watching her with nervous attention. She could see fear in their eyes and uncertainty in their body language. The same aliens who had laughed at human weakness 5 years ago were now wondering if humanity would decide to take revenge for their rejection. 5 years ago, you judged humanity unworthy of membership in this council. Helen began in a clear, strong voice that carried to every corner of the huge chamber. You made this decision based on our history of conflict and what you called our inability to evolve beyond primitive violence. She gestured toward the screens around the chamber that were showing images of human achievements from the past 5 years. The aliens could see pictures of massive space cities floating in orbit around distant stars. They could see factories that produced more goods in a day than most alien worlds made in a year. They could see fleets of advanced ships that dwarfed anything in the galaxy. Since that time, we have established 43 thriving colonies across 37 star systems, Helen continued. We have developed technologies that exceed galactic standards by margins you previously thought impossible. We have created a civilization that values both individual freedom and collective achievement in ways you never imagined. Speaker Velthar shifted nervously in his large center seat. His clicking sounds were quieter now and less confident than they had been during the first human visit. Your technological achievements are certainly impressive, he admitted reluctantly, but they do not address our original concerns about human nature and your species' tendency toward violence. Admiral Betty Johnson rose from her seat in the human delegation area. She was still wearing her military uniform with all its medals and ribbons, and she looked every bit as dangerous as the ship she commanded. Then let me address those concerns directly, she said in a voice that made several aliens shrink back in their seats. You are absolutely right about human nature, Betty continued as she walked to stand next to Helen. When we are threatened, we do become dangerous. When we are challenged, we do respond with overwhelming force. When someone tells us we are inferior, we prove them wrong so completely that they question everything they thought they knew. The chamber became completely silent as the full meaning of her words sank into the alien minds. They were beginning to understand that their rejection had not made humanity go away. It had transformed humanity into something far more powerful and dangerous than they could have imagined. But here is what you missed in your analysis, Betty said, as her eyes moved from one alien delegate to another. We only become truly dangerous to our enemies. To our allies and to those who treat us with respect and fairness, we become the most loyal and capable partners in the entire galaxy. General Paul Martin stood up from his place in the human delegation. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had spent decades making life and death decisions. Every species in this council maintains military forces, Paul said as he looked around at the alien delegates. Every civilization represented here has fought wars and used violence to protect their interests. The only difference between us and you is that we are honest about what we are capable of when someone pushes us too far. A tall, thin alien from the back of the chamber stood up on shaking legs. Are you saying that humanity will use violence against council members who oppose your membership? It asked in a voice that sounded scared. Helen Price answered before any of the military officers could respond. We are saying that we no longer need your approval to exist and thrive in this galaxy, she said calmly. We have proven that we can build our own civilization and defend it against any threat. We are offering you the chance to be our partners and allies instead of our competitors or enemies. The alien delegates began talking among themselves in worried voices. They could see the choice that humanity was offering them. They could accept humans as equals and benefit from human technology and protection, or they could continue to oppose humanity and face the consequences of making enemies of the most powerful species in the galaxy. President Maria Gonzalez appeared on the main screen as her image was transmitted from Earth. She looked calm and confident as she addressed the council that had rejected humanity 5 years earlier. We are honored by your decision to reconsider our membership application, she said, even though no official vote had taken place yet. We look forward to contributing to galactic peace and prosperity through cooperation and mutual respect. She paused for a moment, and her expression became more serious. But I want all of you to remember this moment, she continued. Remember it the next time you are tempted to judge any species based on incomplete information or prejudiced assumptions. Remember what happens when you underestimate the potential of those who are different from you. The vote was called within an hour and the result was unanimous. Not because the aliens had suddenly developed love for humanity, but because they were smart enough to recognize that making enemies of humans would be the stupidest mistake in galactic history. As the human delegation prepared to take their permanent seats in the council chamber, Admiral Ryan Blake watched from the observation area. He was the same man who had delivered humanity's warning 5 years earlier, and he felt a deep sense of satisfaction as he watched the ceremony. The galaxy had denied humanity a seat when they were weak and seeking acceptance. By doing so, they had forced humans to prove their worth through strength and achievement rather than diplomacy and pleading. The irony was not lost on anyone who understood what had really happened. The council had created exactly what they feared most, by rejecting what they wanted most. They had turned potential junior partners into dominant leaders who held all the advantages in any future relationship. Humanity had returned to claim their place in galactic civilization, but they no longer needed anyone's permission to be there. They had become what the galaxy needed, whether it realized it or not.